Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing good. I'm going to be listing today the specific things that I'm looking for in a sailboat. Before we start today, I'm going to do my weigh-in. As I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, I started out as a very obese, heavy 236.5 pound, and I'm not like 6'5", I'm about 5'5", so I've been losing weight because I want to get fit so that I can operate the sailboat. Alright, so let's talk about today some of the things that a list that I've come up with, and maybe you have some comments. Maybe those of you that have boats or you've been sailing, you kind of have some input for me. I would love to hear it. Just put a down below, down below, on the comments. Alright, so here is the list. Number one, I do want a blue water ocean capable boat. Now, I have no interest in sailing in the northern or southern latitudes. No, I don't want to, well, at this point. Sailing nervous is what I'm all about. So I have those huge waves in the Southern Ocean, Southern Indian Ocean, and you've all seen those YouTube videos of the guys and gals sailing in those amazingly large waves. And to me, I'd be like, can I leave now? But you can't. You're there for for a long time. So I would probably freak out. And also the northern latitudes. But there is the tropics. The tropical latitudes are between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And those are my cruising grounds worldwide. So I do want a blue water ocean capable boat. Now, I know people have said to me, oh, you know what, it is about how good the captain is, not the boat. And that's true, obviously, but I want to have the confidence in my own mind, because I am sailing nervous, to know that the boat is solid, it's stable, the hardware is ready to take a beating or a pounding if it has to, that it can take it. I know it's going to be able to take more than I can, but it'll give me confidence. So I do want a blue water ocean capable boat. Now, what are they? Well, there's lots of controversy about it. Everybody's got their opinion. But for me, I do want a full keel or a modified cutaway full keel. Okay. Next, what's my price range? That's important too, and that's one of the hardest things because there's some really nice boats out there. And I've been in storms, with four lines moored to a marina. And, as a newbie sailor, it really does give me more peace of mind to be in a marina. And I'm not, thinking of being in a marina all the time, but it's nice to be able to know that, if I just need to go to a marina because there's a storm that's going to last a couple of days, I don't feel like anchoring out. And especially in the beginning, until I gain the confidence that I need, that, length overall is, if it's $1.50 a foot, then there's going to be a big difference between a 35-foot boat and a 28-foot boat. All right, next thing is, how about the ease of working on the boat? I've heard owners say that this boat is a bear to work on, or others say, this boat is really easy to work on. All right, and there are technical issues, though, what makes it hard, what makes it easy. But that's going to be an issue, which is really also access to the engine. I've heard owners say that it's just almost impossible. You got to be a contortionist just to change the oil. And others that say, oh man, this boat, the engine access is great, and if you have to rebuild the engine, it just comes right out of the cockpit, as opposed to some boats, if you want to rebuild it, you've got to do some major, deconstruction of the boat, and it can get expensive. All right, what else? Motion comfort is something that is of interest to me. I've been on different boats, 60-foot boats and 50-foot boat, 35-foot boat, and depending on the displacement of the boat, the motion is something that interests me, especially to go out, into the ocean. I do want a protected rudder that's got a protection. You can take a look at this picture. It kind of shows what I mean. All right, what else? How about comforted anchor? Now, I don't know. That's kind of, boats roll. And, that's one of the reasons why I originally was really interested in a catamaran. Because everyone says, oh, it's great, it doesn't heel when you sail, and an anchor, it's flat. But frankly, catamarans are really expensive. Even the less expensive one, like a Gemini 105 MC, they're like $100,000, used even still in that range. It's still too high. And the nice catamarans, are a lot more than that. So that's the price that puts me off on the catamarans. Although that was actually my first choice. All right, so comforted anchor. Maybe you guys know something about that. If you do, let me know, because I know it has a lot to do with if the anchorage is protected or not. I get that. Even a heavy displacement boat's gonna rock and roll. But I remember one night, it was kind of fun actually, but we didn't get any sleep. Me and my son it was just like a roller coaster. It was an unprotected anchorage. But it was kind of a light displacement boat. So I'm wondering, I didn't experience that in some of the heavier displacement boats. So if you have a comment about that, let me know. All right, how about the type of steering? I used to think I liked the wheel because it looks so nautical, but the tiller has got a lot of things to commend it. It's, whatever, as simple as possible. And what I've read, and let me see what you think about this, that if it is a wheel system, that I should make sure it's either built by Edson or Lumar/Whitlock. So, because that's an important thing too, steering. What if your steering goes out in the middle of the passage? I was on one boat where it's like, where's the emergency tiller? And they're like, well, this model doesn't have an emergency tiller. I was like, oh, okay. All right, so they say that we're supposed to try to avoid double enders, okay? Because there's less lazarette storage, less buoyancy aft, and they have a tendency to squat in the stern and hobby horse when they sail to the windward. But I don't know. A lot of the boats I'm looking at actually do have that canoe stern. So what do you think of that? If those of you, if you have some comments about that, let me know. All right. Now, how about the engine? That's important. How good is everyday access? Is it, got a couple thousand hours or less? Or is it? I was looking at one boat. It was like from 1979. It had the original engine, and how reliable is that going to be? It's such an old engine. I know they can last long. Tens of thousands of hours if they're properly maintained, but what if they're not maintained properly? All right. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you continue with me on the journey.